You're watching Global Trade This Week with Pete Mento and Doug Draper.
Welcome, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of 2026. This is Global Trade This Week, and we're going to run it for another 365 days. My name's Doug Draper. I am one of your hosts of this show that's been going for about 4.5 years, if you can believe that. But the man that does all the heavy lift, my partner in crime, Mr. Pete Mento. Pete, what's going on, buddy? Happy New Year.
I do the heavy lifting other than taking my fat ass in and out of this chair, Doug. There's not a lot of heavy lifting. You're the one with the substance, right? If we were a football commentary team, I'm definitely color in your play-by-play.
I would say just the opposite. But anyway,
Really?
Thank you for that.
I don't know, man. You do the hard stuff. I just sit here and talk my smack for an hour, but thank you.
That is so funny. I literally was talking to my son over the weekend. We were talking about the show, and we're watching football because there was a lot of it throughout the weekend. And he said, in your show, who would you be, the color guy or the play-by-play? And I said color, but I guess,
No, you're the one that pays attention to everything, keeps things on track. I'm the one that rambles and says a bunch of completely unnecessary crap. Doug, I am color, you're play-by-play. You're the one that they can't replace. They could find any other idiot to sit in here and tell bad jokes. You think about it, right? There's a reason why guys like Summerall and all those cats, they stay. And then every couple of years, there's a new crop of recently retired NFLers that come in that last or don't last. I'm saying what you do is a skill. What I do is, I don't know. It's just, I'm salsa on the taco. I'm okay with it.
All right.
Man.
Well, thanks for that. I guess that's a compliment, so thank you very much.
It is. It's a hell of a compliment, yeah.
Anyway, cool.
Well, Happy New Year, Doug. Happy week 1 of 52 weeks of Global Trade This Week. And welcome back, everybody, from what was a truly awesome. Didn't it feel like this was a really long holiday break? Because of the way the days sort of fell?
Yeah, because it was a Thursday. So kind of Tuesday, Monday you had to be there just because. Tuesday you kind of waned off. Wednesday everybody was gone, and then nobody came back on Friday. And you do that for 2 weeks in a row, and it makes it feel like a long break.
I'll say it again, Doug. Do we really need a 5-day work week? I don't know that we do. I know I don't want one anymore.
Mm-hmm. No, agreed. All right. Well, let's get this first show of 2026 underway, my friend. I'll let you kick it off.
This is going to be a tough one to do without talking about politics, Doug, but I'm up to it, pal. So Saturday night, early Sunday morning, my phone starts ringing. It doesn't stop. I'm up all night long. Sorry, I had to sneeze. I'm up all night long. I'm talking to oil exploration companies, oil drilling companies, who are all trying to figure out how they're going to reposition equipment to get to what's happening off of Venezuela. So I'm not going to talk about how we gave the president of a certain country a new area code. Instead, in a new uniform, new outfit, he was in court not too long ago, pleading not guilty. What I'm going to talk about is the impact this has on trade and transportation. So the largest undrilled resource, largest field of energy on planet Earth lies between Guyana and Venezuela. And 3 countries all claim some sort of responsibility for it. Guyana, Venezuela, and Brazil. Brazil has been working to act as an intermediary to try to get Guyana and Venezuela to agree to something. Because Venezuela, up until a few months ago, was very close to invading Guyana. That's something that isn't brought up enough. They were seriously talking about boots on the ground invading Guyana in order to protect what is a much larger field of resources than Saudi Arabia, all the OPEC nations combined. To give you an idea of how much oil on paper right now the United States controls, it's around 58% of all possible of the drillable resources for energy, for oil and for gas. Now, why this is such a big deal is that the U.S. is going to allow these companies to drill there. They were already going to do it anyway, but they're going to have to sell it to U.S. refineries. So this crude oil, instead of going to China, instead of going to Cuba, instead of going to India, is going to come to the U.S., where it'll be refined into finished products like gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, you name it, which is going to mean more of it in the U.S. at a much lower price, but more importantly, we'll be the ones who are exporting it around the world. it's a good time to buy refinery stock. I heard someone say that today on MSNBC. But more importantly, it means that control of that energy is now out of the hands of our friends. I can't believe somebody just called me on my phone. More importantly, it means that it's in the hands of not China and not India and not those other countries. It's going to drive up the cost of energy. Energy and electricity are a massive component of manufacturing and production costs. So it's going to mean more expensive manufacturing for those nations. It's a strategic move on a number of parts by the U.S. to further isolate China economically. Not all, but a good amount, a pretty good amount, figuring from 10 to 20% of the energy consumed by China originated outside of Venezuela. A significant amount of the energy by India. But the big reason here is that Iran had a bit of a relationship with Venezuela, and so did Cuba. Most of Cuba's energy resources were coming from Venezuela. They're not going to be anymore. So this will artificially lower the price of crude globally. This would allow the U.S. to be able to keep it as low as $50 to $55 a barrel. Again, this is just what I've been reading, and that's going to put incredible pressure on the Russian government. So this is like a not 3D, like 8D chess that's happening right now with energy. For us, for our industry, what I think it means is lower operating costs for transportation providers that are coming in and out of the United States, particularly air freight, as well as our good friends that are driving trucks and trains all over the place. And then secondly, what it means is for increased production costs out of our frenemies over there in China. So I don't know, Doug, if you put a lot of thought into that over the past couple of days or not, but it just appears to me to be that this is going to have a pretty big impact, not this year, but probably next year.
Yeah. Yeah, the one, obviously it's been all over the news for a variety of different ways. The one thing that jumped out to me is the infrastructure. We talk a lot about the infrastructure and how that's key to supporting our industry, and why China just continues to dominate with manufacturing, because their infrastructure is phenomenal. The infrastructure in LA is set up. There is no infrastructure to pull that product out of the ground at the level that you described. Are they pulling a million barrels a day? Yeah. But to flip on the jets and to do all the things with this black gold, so to speak, there's going to need a lot of money that's going to go into that country to improve the infrastructure, to really pull those resources out of the ground. And that doesn't happen overnight, right? You can only move so fast. So to your point, it's good to find out what stocks you want to invest in, because if it's related to oil and gas and drilling and all the folks that provide the pick and axes that we've used in the past to build the infrastructure to pull the black gold out of the ground, that needs to take priority, or all of this is not going to happen at the level that people are starting to talk about. So I don't want them to. We need to focus there. Right? How do you get it out? It's great. Look at all the cool stuff we're going to do with this. We can't get it fast enough, and there needs to be infrastructure wrapped around it.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. And that's where all the trade stuff happens. I mean, you and I both work for companies that are moving the infrastructure, everything from the pipe that you need sand for fracking to just, resupplying these boats and work boats. There's a lot of logistics that goes into energy. I know we talk a lot about green energy here, but you can't discount how important the petroleum pipeline is in their supply chain. It's just an integral part of the American economy, and it will be for quite a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So before this turns into one of us stumping about politics, I should probably let you get to the next topic.
Yeah. Well, this one still has a political edge. I don't know if the show's possible anymore, Pete, without having some political angle. And we try to be agnostic as much as possible. And I think we do a pretty good job.
We do.
But my first topic is China and South Korea. I'm sorry, I got spun around on my topics here. But I don't know if you saw that South Korea, China, they're meeting together, and they're going to try to reset their relationship a little bit, kind of reset it for 26. It's a little pomp and circumstance going on Beijing right now. But trade disputes and security issues between the two countries have been pretty poor condition over the last several decades. And they're meeting today, I think literally today, talk about how they can improve the partnership related to components, semiconductors, consumer electronics, auto parts. I think were a couple of key ones that popped up. So what does that mean? Okay, cool. So South Korea and China are going to become more friendly. They're going to ease the barriers to trade between themselves. But oh, by the way, the United States needs a lot of those products to fill our pipeline. Again, semiconductors, the AI industry, consumer electronics, buy the TV that is 10 inches bigger than the one that you had last year. And then obviously auto parts aftermarket is a lot of that in there. But anyway, so what happens when a country that we're frenemies with and a country that we have good relationship with kind of forge a bond better than they've had in the past? And what is that going to do for the United States related to trade, right? So when things start happening and we're like, we need our stuff, the United States needs their stuff. But yet these two parties that we rely on heavily are now together working more collaboratively than they have in the past. I don't know what that means, Pete, but I do know that we need to keep an eye on it because this is something that's kind of flying under the radar. And those are two very important countries to us on very specific commodities that we need in our daily lives. And so it caught my attention when I read that this morning, and I thought it was important to bring it up. So it'll be interesting to see how that relationship continues to evolve in 26 and how that's going to impact the United States.
I don't know what it means, but it seems like something we should keep our eye on.
Yep.
It's sort of the checking out a mole on someone's back kind of philosophy of trade policy. I agree with you, Doug. These are two countries that something most Americans don't realize is that many of the larger economies of Asia have long-standing historical disagreements. Everything from wars that happened hundreds of years ago to allegations of war crimes against one another during major global conflicts. The Japanese, the Koreans, the Chinese, there's no love lost between the three of them. So anytime you see them actively trying to make their relationships better, it's like a cat and a dog getting together to have a drink at the bar. It's funny because it's weird. Mm. So yeah, you're absolutely right. We should be watching this. Ultimately both countries are concerned about long-term economic opportunities. And I think Korea is seeing that their long-term economic opportunities are probably more tied within the region than they are with the U.S. So that's probably where that's coming from.
Yeah, great analogy. We just got to look. You go to the doctor. I want to keep my eye on that mole on your back, right? I don't. Yeah. I never thought we'd be talking about moles on the show.
Doug,
you did a good job.
It's just another excellent example of two old curmudgeonly dudes that have an hour to fill with information. 401ks, the weather, what hurts today, traveling sucks. We should talk about the mole on my back. This is where we are now, Doug. This is what's happened to us.
That's funny. All right. Well, that brings us to halftime, brought to us by Cap Logistics. As we always say, we wouldn't be here every week without those guys, and we really appreciate it. And check out caplogistics.com. I think they're going to have a banner year this year, Pete, for some of their core businesses that Cap's involved with. But we shall see, and we appreciate their support. Anyway, Peter,
I'm going to go first.
What do you got?
So, Doug, it's important that we treat this like a lightning round. Okay, we're going to play this or that.
Okay.
I'm going to give you.
I love it. I have no idea what you're going to ask me, so let it run.
No, don't worry. You have to answer one or the other. I don't need any commentary. Okay, you ready? Eating alone at a bar, okay, and being left alone to enjoy your meal, or having a pretty interesting and fun bartender who interrupts you all the time but entertains you.
Interesting bartender that interrupts you.
Okay. A restaurant with one perfect dish, or a place where everything is fine, but the atmosphere is absolutely incredible.
Everything is fine, great atmosphere.
Okay. Owning 5 different pairs of tennis shoes, different colors, different uses, or one pair that you just really love.
5. I'm a shoe guy.
Do you finish a book out of spite, or do you just abandon it because you're not going to bother with it?
Abandon.
Okay. A hotel room with a great view, or a hotel room with blackout shades, so the room is completely dark when you sleep.
Great view. Okay. That blackout shades just sounds horrible.
Oh, they're awesome. Being early and resentful for being early, or being on time and stressed out on your way there?
Well, I'm all about being early, so I will take early.
Okay. A long walk with no destination, or sitting perfectly still with a good cup of coffee for an hour?
Long walk.
And lastly, knowing a little about a lot of things, or knowing so much about one thing that you become an expert.
Oh, a little bit about a lot.
All right. We disagreed on practically all of those, Doug. So for those of you listening at home for this week's version of This or That, that's a great illustration of how different Doug and I genuinely do not like being in public. For a guy that gives speeches to thousands of people every year, you think that wasn't the case, but I am happiest when left the hell alone. So yeah, Doug, that's it for my halftime. This or that.
Yeah. People are the worst, Pete. People are the worst.
For guys in sales, we generally don't like people. Figure that out. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, we work with Keenan, and I can't stand him.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Yeah. The one thing I always tell my kids and is that I love this industry because we kick ass at cocktail parties, because we know a little bit about a lot of industries, and so we can act somewhat intelligent. And when we get too deep, we just go off and get another cheese board and another shrimp on the stick or whatever. But yeah, so a little bit about a lot of different things is my go-to for sure.
I know way too much about handbags and women's footwear. After spending 30 years classifying them and being in their supply chain, I know a preposterous amount about really small, out-of-the-way countries because people manufacture there. You and I mean, you know more than I do, know more about trucking than I don't know how to drive a tractor trailer. I mean, if it's a lot different than a tractor, there's no way, but man, do I know a lot about how those things operate. So this industry is great because you are endlessly learning about, I think, interesting things.
Yeah, great.
All right, man, hit me with your halftime.
All right. Well, speaking of interesting things, this is the week of the Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas. I didn't realize it. I knew it happened in January, but I didn't realize it was so.
Doug, you've done this topic a couple of times.
No,
so I'm convinced that you're like on the down low, super fired up for the electronics show.
No, all the crazy crap that comes out. You know me, I'm this kid from Kansas. It's just like, does that pay my mortgage? If it doesn't, I don't really have an interest in it.
Golly, what's this contraption they're selling?
Hey, y'all, watch this. Anyway, so a couple of things that I wanted to call out. Apparently, there's a dueling keynote addresses at the show. NVIDIA and AMD, both the CEOs are going to be talking.
Wow.
NVIDIA goes first and AMD later today. They're literally on the first day of the show. So that's, I don't know if the intent is to pit them against each other or have a yin and yang type of scenario, but two keynotes from two of the biggest companies related to AI technology. A couple of key things to keep in mind for this year, Pete, is that robotic helpers or robo-helpers. The new term that you're going to hear, I would imagine, is zero labor households. So all these robots that can do dishes and cook meals and fold your laundry, apparently there's going to be a lot of that action. This is super cool. There is a company that's rolling out 9mm thick wallpaper that is essentially a television, where you can just roll it on your wall. And the same thing with the speaker. You can literally unroll, I'm thinking like, what was that? That fruit roll-ups, right? You do a fruit roll-up, stick that thing on your wall, and there's your TV, or fruit roll-up, and then you can listen to your radio. So wallpaper TV and
wow.
And audio. Smartwatches and wearables specific to this is the term, body connected tech is kind of the thing. So look for more smartwatches and glasses and things of that nature. And then there's like this whole ring of robotic demos where they're going to have robots come out and do all kinds of stuff. So keep peeled on TikTok as far as cool videos you're going to see. And I think there's going to be flame-throwing robots going on. So anyway, robo-helpers, wallpaper TV and speakers, and body connective technology are kind of the hype for this year.
I wonder if they're going to have a robot demo where one stops, frisks, beats, and then arrests someone in the crowd. Or, a robo dog that takes insanely accurate shots with a mounted 9mm cannon on its back or something like that. I'm moving to Maine, dude. To hell with this. The robots terrify me. I know you don't like drones for our industry, but the more I read about their uses on the military side of things, the more they just terrify me. Utterly terrify me.
Mm-hmm.
So, don't get me wrong. I'm not a guy that walks around with a phone covered in duct tape and a cracked screen. I do like technology, but some of this stuff just scares the shit out of me, Doug.
Yeah. Well, good deal. All right. Well, that was halftime brought to us by Cap Logistics. Please visit them at caplogistics.com. All right.
Yeah, drop them a line and say that Keenan should probably be paid less for his contribution to the show.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know exactly what he gets paid, but it could be $0.00.
Yeah, he does it for the love of the game. Keenan just gets up in the morning and dances to his laptop. He's so excited to produce podcasts with two old farts like us. Right. So my second topic today is interesting because I think it's a bit of foreshadowing of what's going on. Last week, Customs came out with a ruling that makes it clear that going forward, all refunds will be returned electronically. I can well remember a time where I would put in refund requests for 100 different entries and get 100 different checks. Well, now Customs has said the only way that entries will be processed, unless you get a pretty high level exemption, is through using ACH. This is going to push people to have their own accounts and have electronic submissions back and forth. But I think it also is foreshadowing because I believe Customs is starting to realize that they could be on the very cusp of a $300 billion refund event. And the cost of writing checks, mailing them to people, processing them would be positively catastrophic. So two things here. One, if you're not on ACH and you're expecting to get refunds anywhere down the road, you better get on it because you're not going to get your money unless you're on that system. And then second of all, this is a great foreshadowing that I believe that Customs is seeing the writing on the wall and they should be giving money back that way. I don't know, Doug. That's where my head's at with that one.
Yeah. I think it's coincidence more than foreshadowing, right? I think it was inevitable whether we were having this discussion with the Supreme Court or not. It seems like when you shot this over, I was surprised it wasn't already happening, to be honest with you. And so I think I don't think it was, hey, here's the direction the courts are going to go. We need to get ACH. I think it was just coincidence for,
I think, Doug, that it would have happened one way or the other eventually, but the idea of this all happening now has hastened it. It's made it happen faster. But you're right. Probably in the next 5 to 10 years, it would have happened. But they're like, now, do it now, because they see what's coming down the road. Yeah. So I partially agree with you. I don't get to hit the "you're wrong" button right now, but I was pretty close for a second there.
It's a yellow. It's not a red stop sign. It's a yellow caution. I get it. So, cool.
Take us home, buddy.
All right. Well, mine. Again, a lot of these topics. I do my part, Pete, not to sit in the morning and go to ChatGPT and say, what are the topics happening in global trade? I don't do that. I look at all the posts that come to me in the emails on a daily basis of our industry, and I'm like, that's an interesting article. I'm going to put it over here, and I think I'm going to speak to that next week. And so this one I saw over the weekend talked about the Vietnam trade surplus with the United States is growing. And the number that was topped out was 8%, right? So Vietnam's selling a lot more stuff to us than we're selling to Vietnam, and that gap just hit a record high, right? And so this is perfect. Just now I'm thinking about this, Pete. Is it could be coincidence, or is it a direct reflection of people changing their supply chain strategies, right? I don't know if an 8% jump in the short amount of time that this whole tariff situation has been in place since last April. So is this just coincidence, or is it a direct reflection of people pivoting their supply chain? So is sourcing diversification working? Yes, I think this is a reflection of that, not specifically because of the tariff situation, because you just can't pivot that fast to have that big impact. But it's telling. And the one piece that I did a little deep dive, and definitely want your opinion on this one, Pete, is the impact on currency valuations between the two countries. And now that we're buying more stuff from Vietnam, is that going to shore up their currency? And I think it's called the dong.
Yes, it is the dong. It is the most fun of all currencies to say. Yes.
Yeah. So I know it was really weak. So I don't know if it's going to gain any traction with this increased 8% growth. But I thought it was normal. So my take on this one, Pete, is I think that the shifting supply chain strategies, this is a reflection. I don't think it's a direct reflection of what's transpired with the tariffs because it's too short of a window to see that level of impact, in my opinion. But I also would be curious to see how their financial currency is going to fare if that trend continues to increase. So I don't know.
Well thoughtful, Doug. So I 100% agree with you that the tariffs happened so quickly that to see supply chains shift so dramatically and quickly to reflect that is unlikely. But for a long time, people have been considering this China plus one, right? China plus one country. And Vietnam and Mexico and India have been the overwhelming winners of that China plus one, but not to the degree that we're talking beyond what we're seeing now. That 8% is impressive. Don't get me wrong. But a real shift of production out of China would have been double digits, 25, 30%. So I think, maybe we'll put a thumbnail on this one and take a look at it next year when the numbers come out again to see how dramatic an increase it was. I think 8% is certainly something to watch, but it's not reflective of a wholesale change in direction. I agree with you there. Supply chains don't move that quickly. Now, I'd love to see month over month compared to last year for, say, September, October, November, December, when people might have had time to start shifting supply chains. And then we can compare that to next year. The currency one is fascinating, right? One of the reasons that Vietnam, Cambodia, Indonesia, Malaysia, certainly Thailand, one of the reasons they're so good at being that secondary sources, they have an interesting currency situation. If they start selling too much to the United States, that's actually going to increase the value of the currency, which is going to make them less advantageous as opposed to, say, a Mexico, certainly in India. So there's like a bit of you don't want to overheat. You don't want to overheat your exports, because then you get in a situation like China where they are allegedly managing the value of their currency against the dollar, even through that overheating. The economy of Vietnam and Cambodia, they're not big enough to be able to do that in a way that wouldn't be seen as just straight currency manipulation. So yeah, it can't overheat. And if it does, it'll take away some of that advantage. Their biggest advantage remains inexpensive labor. Their biggest disadvantage remains they just don't have the supply chain infrastructure that a place like China has. So yeah, it could overheat, Doug. That's a very good observation.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. All right.
Look at that. Year one, week one, I've complimented Doug twice. Let's see what the trend is for the coming year. So with that, everyone, that's a wrap on Global Trade this week for week number one. We want to thank our good friends at Cap Logistics for their constant, never-ending support of the show, even if it means we have to work with Keenan. I want to thank my co-host for every week just bringing it. And thank all of you for listening, telling your friends about it, reposting the episodes. That does matter to us. We don't get paid for this. Doug and I honestly do this because we love it. And we're two men in our 50s. We have nothing else to do. But for the rest of the year, like we always say, if it's happening in Global Trade, we're talking about it in Global Trade this week. And we'll see y'all again next week. Thanks, Doug.
All right. Catch you later, Pete. See you.